I want to take a moment to discuss Cities Skylines 2 and some of the issues that I've been facing and how those issues are going to change this channel over the next little while and over the long term. And though I'm guessing that you were expecting this to be like some of the other videos that have come out recently that have been critical of Cities Skylines 2, this is going to be a little bit different. I stand in solidarity with those creators that have put out those videos and shared many of the same feelings myself. But I've been planning on making this video independent of all of those videos because of what I think is the biggest problem facing Cities Skylines 2 right now. It's many bugs. I think it's a bigger problem than the performance issues. It's a bigger problem than the lack of mod supports, the lack of an editor, the lack of assets, and the lack of features and creature comforts that we become accustomed to in Cities Skylines 1. And bluntly, that's because some of these bugs completely ruin the simulation and have the potential to ruin each and every city that you build in the game. And there's this one bug in particular that is worse than all others: the land value bug. This is a bug where land value spirals out of control and makes development of certain residential land uses impossible. Now, interestingly, this is actually a bug that I first encountered when building Moundsville during early access. But in Moundsville, the bug manifests itself a little bit differently. I wasn't able to spawn single-family homes in new neighborhoods on the outskirts of downtown. And at the time, I kind of just chalked it up to new game mechanics and figured that I'd get used to it over time. Fast forward to Magnolia County, and as the series progresses, we begin seeing more and more of those indicators showing us that the rent is too damn high. And initially, I thought it was my fault. I figured I just needed to increase the density. It was a game mechanic, and I needed to play with it, not against it. So I increased the density. And then I did it a little bit more than I wanted to, and we got big towers in our tiny little town. And it worked for a time, but high rent complaints quickly came back. So I decided to troubleshoot some more off camera. And the first thing I found were students of the university living in single-family homes by themselves. And I figured that this is my mistake. I need to increase the density near the university and have more low-rent housing. And for a time, this worked. But it came back. And then I decided to look in downtown Moundsville, and I found seniors living with a whole bunch of children, and though they were wealthy, they couldn't afford their rent. It doesn't quite make sense. And then I found Jeffrey. Jeffrey is a child living by himself in a single-family home in downtown Moundsville. And it's not surprising, Jeffrey can't afford the rent. And bluntly, this is a major game-killing simulation error. But then I found the real issue. Land values are a complete mess near offices, industrial, and commercial, literally maxed out in many cases, even if they're low-density uses. And you might think that that's by design, and maybe it is. Land value is tied to profitability. So buildings level up as companies become more profitable. The problem is the profits continue to increase, apparently for a long time, and land values completely max out even for the lowest density uses. And this also impacts your tax collections. You're going to end up collecting more, and then you might decide to turn down your taxes because you don't want to over-collect. And that will increase the profitability of those businesses, which will in turn improve the land value of those businesses, and the cycle goes on and on and on and on. Now, where this becomes a significant issue is when you have offices, commercial, or industrial within close proximity to residential uses and connected via a local road. And this is because land value spreads by local roads in Cities Skylines 2, and those uses appreciate much faster than residential uses. So the result is that they'll start to complain about high rent, then they'll begin to abandon, then they will collapse, and ultimately the buildings will disappear. And if you wait long enough, you'll have an empty lot where nothing but high density can spawn, because the land value is too high. This game mechanic might make good sense in a dense urban environment, but the problem is I'm experiencing this literally everywhere where I have mixed uses. And that means that the game is actively disincentivizing good urban planning, making walkable communities. But it gets worse. If you dezone any of those employment uses to attempt to fix the land value remains for quite some time. But I think we have to ask ourselves, is that really how we want to play? Do we want to eliminate all office and industrial in our city and relegate them to some suburban office park? That's not how I want to play. So the net result of this is that literally all of my series are broken. But I wanted to know just how broken Magnolia County is. So I decided to run it for a few hours to see when the city would cannibalize itself. But here's the thing. After just a few hours, the game crashed at a milestone, and then after it crashed to the desktop, I was unable to load any saves I had ever made in the game. So I attempted to validate my game files, which didn't work, and I ultimately had to uninstall and reinstall Cities Skylines 2 to get the game to work again. Very frustrating. But eventually I did get back into the game. I was able to load up my last autosave and was able to see that within about 4 hours of in-game time, Magnolia County would eventually begin to fail due to the bug. And it was at that point that I decided to make this video. But then something amazing happened. A modder by the name of Jimmy OK released the Land Value Overhaul mod. And if you look at the release notes here, it actually outlines the death spiral that my cities have been facing. So I installed this mod and it fixed my city. But I still feel like I have to mention this because the game still has many fundamental issues and bugs, and the cadence at which bug fixes are going to be issued has significantly declined. And from what we're hearing from Colossal Order, bug fixes will now coincide with DLC releases as well as the pending release of Paradox mods. And I want to be blunt, I don't really understand this decision because it's quite clear that there are many foundational issues with the game simulation broadly. User decisions don't seem to matter. It's impossible to troubleshoot your city because the tools aren't available to do so, tools that were available in Cities Skylines 1. In the simulation, it's constantly attempting to balance itself without user interaction, completely sapping the challenge and the fun out of the game. And honestly, in many cases, I can't tell if what I'm experiencing is a bug or a deliberate design decision because the user interface doesn't provide me enough information to parse between the two. And because of all of that, I feel like I need to pump the brakes on some of my Cities Skylines 2 content. And it really sucks because I like the game. I love the game's core mechanics, and it really seems like most of you enjoy the Cities Skylines 2 content that I've been producing. As of recording, I've logged almost 900 hours in the game, and for the most part, I've enjoyed my experience, but I've been absolutely perplexed by some of the bugs that I've encountered along the way. I can overlook the lack of mods. We figured that out as a community with the Thunderstore. And I can overlook the lack of custom maps because we figured that out as well. And I can even overlook the lack of custom assets even though I'm painfully tired of the vanilla ones because I know some are coming in the future. But the bugs are absolutely killing the game for me, and I know they are for many of you as well. And to minimize the risk of ruining my builds, I'm going to do a few things. First, I'm going to discontinue the Ultimate Beginner's Guide to Cities Skylines 2 for the foreseeable future until more bugs are fixed. Second, I'm going to reduce the frequency of Magnolia County to just once per week. And third, I'm going to add other city builders into the channel's rotation, including Cities Skylines 1. And finally, I'm going to change the release schedule for videos on this channel. For most of the life of the channel, I've tried to release videos at the same time and the same days of the week, and I've been mostly successful since I started the channel. But making Cities Skylines 2 videos has been much more complicated than my other videos in the past, due in no small part to the bugs and issues that I've described throughout this video. But I'm also doing this because I've been leaning more heavily into storytelling to give each build a sense of purpose, something that I think is really necessary because the simulation of Cities Skylines 2 doesn't necessarily provide that itself right now. And honestly, I've really been enjoying this, and I'm likely going to continue it even after the simulation for Cities Skylines 2 is fixed, but it is very time intensive. So from here on out, I'm going to release videos every 2 to 4 days whenever they're ready. I'll give a brief early access window for channel members and patrons, and then I'll release it to the general public thereafter. And honestly, I think this is going to be really good for my mental health. It'll improve the quality of each of my releases, and I'm hoping it gives Cities Skylines 2 the opportunity to mature into the game I really want it to become. Listen, I'm rooting for Colossal Order, just like many of you are. I love this genre, I love this game, and I want to see it do well. But right now, this game has some serious issues, and I can't just laugh them off, play this music, and then move on from them, because they seriously break the game. And then finally, and this is probably more to Colossal Order and Paradox, but I hope you guys really reconsider the decision to reduce the number of bug fixes that you have. There are a number of serious bugs still present in the game that absolutely ruin the fun of the game. And I think relegating bug fixes to DLC releases sends a bad message, and the cadence is far too far apart. And with that, I want to thank you all so much for joining me. Thank you all so much for the support. Thank you for the views. Thank you for all the kind words that you've left in the comments. Thank you for the critical comments. Thank you for everything that you guys do for me. And I want to thank all the other content creators that I speak with on a regular basis. You guys really provide me camaraderie that really makes this a gratifying thing for me to be doing. Thank you all so much, and I can't wait to see you in the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.